December the 27th, 2025. Guys, you're looking at a map of Ukraine, and this is going on now. It started this morning. And you can see Kyiv right here, Kiev, that's the capital. You got Odessa right there. This is in Russian. And you're down in the Donetsk region here, and we're seeing that there were attacks here. Odessa and Kiev got hit. They're saying, and this is on the eve of Zelensky flying down to Key Largo tomorrow to meet with Trump on peace talks. So how this fits into the puzzle, we're not sure yet, but I'm sure Europe is on edge. But you got 500 drones came in. A few, again, came in here, hit Odessa, a few in the Donetsk region, but most of these lines of the 500 drones came here. You got 320,000 people without power. They're saying on the west side or the West Bank side of town there. They've been hit before, but this is like a statement by Russia that we're going to take it. Ukraine was once Russian, and we're going to take it back because it's been used as a European and the U.S. playground to antagonize the bear ever since World War II. And Russia's going to take it back. If Europe doesn't like it, he's got something for them. He just flew right on the edge of their airspace 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago, with his big bombers. It forced the Brits to put up escorter jets and everything. They never crossed right into the airspace, but it woke up Britain. It woke up a lot of Europe at the same time, because when this first started, and Europe was really complaining about Russia being the aggressor, when really they stepped in because Ukraine was still bombing some people up in North Ukraine that were pro-Russian. And just whenever they got ready to shoot some missiles, they would fire on the folks up in that region. So Russia just got tired of it and said, we're going to take it back. We're going to end the nonsense. And it had become Joe and Hunter's playground for money laundering, political corruption, biolaboratories, weapons laboratories. It was just a cesspool of basically the 51st state of the U.S. because of look at the players. Remember Biden saying live on TV that he told them if they didn't get rid of the DA that was prosecuting some of the folks that Biden was behind in some of their crooked dealing, he was going to cut off, $500 million, something like that. It was a lot of money. And he said they fired him, just like that. And just telling you, Ukraine wasn't running anything. It was the Obama administration doing that, leading up to the Sleepy Joe administration. Anyway, it was a political playground of corruption and deadly laboratories. I think they took out, in the first week of this conflict, they took out dozens of weapons and biolabs there. The Russians did in Kiev itself. Now, they got a lot of minerals there, and I'm sure that Russia will take advantage of that. Will this lead to World War III? I don't think Europe is strong enough alone. China's not going to go against Russia. They're closer than most people think. So, and you've got China that just came onto the border of Mongolia next to Russia and set up 100 more ICBM launch systems. So, they got the back door of the bear. They've got him covered. But not that I'm saying he needs it, but it's just to let the other world powers know that these two are playing rules in the same court together. They're not going to put up with too much from anybody, including the U.S. They don't need to. The U.S. needs to get out of it. If the U.S. had stayed out of this conflict, it would have been over within a month, not after millions of people have died, because it just prolonged the inevitable and spent a lot of money and cost a lot of lives again. So it needs to stop. But man's mentality doesn't get better as we go through the centuries and decades. It gets worse because the honest thing is everyone gets further away from our Father. And you see this type of destruction going on. We saw it, guys, even in ancient Samaria. Had two major wars, the first Pyramid War, the second Pyramid War, which I have some information on that if I'm going to try to get it up this afternoon. Like I said, it's been a long couple of days, but about that second Pyramid War and what the pyramids were really. They weren't tombs, you know that. They never found any type of, funeral procession stuff, any type of dead people, mummies, or anything like that there. It looks like now a big vacant building, right? I mean, empty chambers, a few things here and there, but basically empty. And during that second Pyramid War, it was not empty. It had amazing technology into it, and again, I've got the text we've been looking at, and I'm going to get that, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to get it up this afternoon, one way or the other. But it's on the second Pyramid War, and it shows the Anunnaki built the pyramids. They built them for reasons, fortress, protection, communication centers, and how they did that is amazing, and how it was defeated is a story within itself. But guys, again, we're looking at something here that is like, I guess it's a signal from Putin, maybe to Trump and Zelensky, that he's in control of the situation. Y'all can talk all you want to, make all kind of deals you want to. What we're going to do is we're going to do the damage necessary to take back Ukraine. And Odessa here in the bottom where you see the explosions, was like one of the queen cities of Mother Russia in the day. Beautiful place. And they're battling over it. I'm sure that Russia has tried to preserve as much as possible in these older cities. What we're seeing in Kiev in the reports I read was power stations and things like that. Some apartment buildings that housed military people were hit. People, 20-something were wounded. It's amazing that hundreds of thousands hadn't been killed. When you just look at the map. 500 drone flights with 40 Kinzhal missiles this morning. But let's take a look at a little bit more about the information coming from there. And before I go there, let me mention one other thing. I was talking about the Pyramid Wars, and we're looking at this war. Guys, what we're doing is, especially looking at the Sumerian text, we're looking back in time so far that it starts to overlap the Old Testament. And it really brings into a question, how really old is some of the information in the Old Testament? And it is starting to tie in with the Ethiopian Bible, the one that preserved all of the book of Enoch. Remember that? But Rome couldn't handle that. They couldn't handle that there were angels involved, good and bad, and that they were the hierarchy of heaven leading up to our Father, and that the churches had to get rid of that. I don't like talking about the angels that much because it takes them out of the picture. The major religions want to be the controllers. And so they took out the book of Enoch, took out the books of Jubilee, and in Jubilee there were a few commandments that were left out by Rome. It wasn't just 10. But those commandments didn't go well with orthodoxy. And the churches are all about making you feel like a sinner and controlling you. The only way you're going to get out of this mess is through them. And the Bible tells you there is no one between you and our Father. There is no one there. But the churches had to interject themselves and to take away your freedom and to constantly tell you that you're a sinner and you have to pray and bow down and submit, when really you are a king in God's eye and a queen with so much power that they've subdued that they forced us into looking in the wrong direction. Because what did Christ say? He said, heaven is within you. That is so deep that if you have to understand, you control your destiny, not a church. You do. And that's important. We'll get into some of those lost commandments. The first one in the book of Jubilees that Rome took out was that to use the solar calendar, not the lunar calendar, which is exactly 364 days. The Jubilee days, all the festival days, hit only, if it's 364 days, it can be divided by 7. And it never changes the dates of the festivals. And that was one of the big commandments. Make sure you follow the festivals and all of that stuff. But anyway, Rome could not handle the solar calendar. They had to inject the lunar calendar with 365 days, and it threw off all the festivals. People don't even know when they really are anymore. And that was the plan. That was the plan, because if you were using the solar calendar and you knew each day and what it represented in creation, in religion, and in obedience, it's a process to which it's really like self-control. But they don't like self-control. They want to be the controllers. So confusion was added in with the lunar calendar. They said it would just be too much to keep up with worldwide on the festival days and things like that. Let's mess it up and let everybody kind of wonder and miss the festival days. Don't get them right. All of that's planned, but that was the first commandment. And why did they take it out? To use that solar calendar, 364 days, you divide it by 7, everything fits perfectly. Every date that's important. It never changes. But they wanted to change days and times, remember? Better watch that, because that's who they're pointing at in the book of Revelation. Now back to here. It says, Russia launched a wave of attacks on Ukraine early Saturday, killing at least one person and injuring many others, and leaving hundreds of thousands without power. I think I read somewhere 320,000. Already the electricity grid has long suffered under such crippling attacks with barely any time or necessary parts for repair. And I've been wondering for over a year or so now that how in the world they got back up so quickly, because Russia has hit Kiev before and their power stations. And you got Chernobyl just up the road from Kiev there. It's a volatile territory. But it says the assault occurred just a day before anticipated Ukraine peace talks between Z-Man and our president, expected at Mar-a-Lago tomorrow. According to the Times, air raid alarms sounded around 1:30 a.m. local time as the strikes began, just after midnight, with Zelensky later stating on X that nearly 500 drones and 40 missiles were used mainly on energy sites and civilian infrastructure in the capital. That the civilian infrastructure, guys, and here's a picture. Let me pull this down. A lot of times they'll be hit not because of civilians, but because they're being occupied by military and intelligence services. Probably a lot of foreigners there giving advice, if you know what I mean. And Z-Man saying that Russia does not want to end the war and seek to use every opportunity to cause Ukraine even greater suffering and increase their pressures on others around the world. Z-Man does not want peace either, because he's on the world stage and he's making money. Zelensky is urgently asking Washington and the West to take more strong steps to save lives. Many of our partners have this capability, he continued, in referencing closing the skies through more sophisticated weaponry. Now, Russia's accusing Ukraine are the same thing. They don't want to stop it. And this attack is to torpedo the peace talks and all of that. But guys, we don't know what's going to happen in Ukraine. If it looks like Russia, if they wanted to, especially if the West and NATO would get out of the situation, which they're not, there are too many war pigs, then this would be over, and Russia would be returned, or Ukraine would be returned to Russia. It could start to prosper again. But the problem is, like I said earlier, it has a lot of minerals underground, and things needed for nuclear weapons, bioweapons, and other minerals that are needed for electronic parts, things like that. So it's a very valuable piece of property. But it initially was Russia's. It looks like it's going to go back to being Russia. The world would have to attack Russia nuclear very heavily at one time in order to stop this takeover. And there's probably some idiots that would do it, especially if the Democrats had power. But most of the world is a little more reserved than that. And let's hope that continues. But guys, we're watching it. You watch it. We having to watch Venezuela. We don't know what's going to happen there because Russia's not happy about it and China's not happy about that. That's different from Ukraine. It's also much closer. And now we have a full naval embargo basically in the the Caribbean. And so what they're calling gunboat diplomacy now. And really, we're not being told the whole truth about Venezuela. We do know that they let Trandiago gangs come through Mexico, probably many other ways too, under Biden and or Obama and Mayorkas. It was a disaster. So we got a lot of gangs here now, like sleeper cells, and some of them aren't asleep. They've been getting locked up and causing trouble. But the other angle is that the world is in trouble economically. The only reason the U.S. stock market is propped up at all is because of the NASDAQ and tech, like AI, Bitcoin, and things. If that collapses, you're going to see a lot more trouble, but Europe is broke also. Now, what does Venezuela have? They have gold and they have oil, and they have a lot of both. So, is it just a war sanctioned against drugs, which needs to happen? Fentanyl does not need to be here on the streets. Gangs don't need to be here killing innocent people. But what is the real gunboat diplomacy all about? Is it because the nations are not only broke, but they're also running out of oil? And I mentioned gold. The central banks guys are starting to hoard gold all across the world, calling it in, stockpiling it for some reason. What do they think? Or, and that's how the whole Sumerian situation got started. Gold. Anyway, we're watching it. Watch for that update this afternoon. Trying my best, guys. It's a heads up. Be safe.